All right, Payton, let's take a look at your essay. So, your hook, the way you start your paper isn't necessarily the greatest. There has been a topic about mercy killings. This is kind of one of those vague generalizations, and it's hard to kind of explain um, how this happens. But a lot of times, we may want to introduce a paper as mercy killings are a topic of hot debate or something along the lines. But it's not a way to draw your readers in, and especially given the articles and literature that you're using, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could introduce that. So after that, you define mercy killing as someone suffering from a disease or they want to die. I would be careful with this definition because I know what you're getting at, but I think you want to focus on your word choice because sometimes there's that blurry line between suicide and mercy killing. So address what you mean by here, and we'll see if it pops up in the rest of your essay, but be a little bit more clear with that. So defining is fine right away. The only grammar thing I'm noticing is contractions. You have it's in there. And I know that's a hard habit to break out of, but I promise once you start doing it, it'll make it easier. So be aware of that. Um, and then you say mercy killings are in a Mice and Men in Time magazine, which is fine. And then you say what the examples are. And I'm going to leave this okay for now. I think in the future you can definitely improve the introduction by focusing it on mercy killing a little bit more. So actually, give me 1 second. Alright, so I wanted to transition into this worksheet that I gave you all in class before, where you had some of these different examples. So if you see here, this talks about what happens if you kill someone, how they're differentiated. This talks about dogs and human relationships. And then this one talks more specifically with a mice man in the example about how it's a humane option. But these are the things that you want to work on as you do your next introduction, is to find ways that you can introduce the topic without relying on those examples to drive your introduction. So you want to be as specific as you can there. But other than that, that is okay for now, but I think it's something you can improve on later. Now, as you get here, this is your thesis, which is pretty good. What I would say, because the purpose of this essay and with argumentative essays is you're going to bring up the disagreement anyways, you don't necessarily need this in your um, introduction. So I would say get rid of the sentence, think of a different hook, and add some more things as you move on for your next paper. Alright, so when you have this first body paragraph, this is a pretty good start with some evidence that you have. And I think the evidence is really strong here. So let's talk about a couple of this, because I think what you're missing mostly is the analysis that ties back into whether or not it's ethical. Because you're right, so a key part of the ethical component that Dr. Kevorkian talks about is the patient being safe, at peace, and they have their own autonomy with it. So that's fine. A couple of things to note. So a lady named Mrs. Atkins was the first patient to Dr. Kevorkian's assistance. So this is kind of an awkward sentence, and I want to talk about how to make this better. That is the wrong thing. So if we move here, let me talk to you about how to make this sentence better. So Mrs. Atkins, I mean, it is her name. It's how she's addressed, but it's not her real name. So what you may want to say is Dr. Kevorkian's first patient that he assisted with in ending their life was Mrs. Atkins from Oregon. I think she's from Oregon. So this is a more impactful sentence than this one. Lady named Mrs. Atkins was the first patient to Dr. Kevorkian's assistance. And this is a little bit awkward because we don't know what you mean by assistant. So saying Dr. Kevorkian's first patient that he assisted with in ending their life, actually we can get rid of that comma, was Mrs. Atkins from Oregon. So that makes it a little bit more impactful because it'll transition better into here. And then here we go. You will want a way to tie this in better. So let me go over here again. Because you have this topic sentence. And, okay, I just want to make sure you didn't mention Kevorkian in the introduction. So when someone is giving a mercy killing, the patient should feel peaceful. Instead, because you haven't introduced who Dr. Kevorkian is yet, you would want to at least say Dr. Kevorkian, the most well-known medical advocate for mercy killing. And then you want to say was, so you have a tense issue, only because he's dead. So was a medical pathologist who helped people end their life. This would be a much more impactful way of that. But overall with this, you have some good evidence, but you want to tie it back into the ethical component of it, and that will make this paragraph better. Because if I look down here at your conclusion, take a quick glimpse, you have some ethical components here, but you need to make sure you're including that in all your body paragraphs. Alright, so moving on to your next paragraph, you talk about Roswell Gilbert, which is an example I'm seeing a lot, which is a good piece of evidence to use. You have the contractions again, and you talk about he didn't want to see her suffer anymore. You've got a spacing concern here, and then we have the contractions, which I think I just said, but I'm seeing 3 contractions right there, kind of like a triangle. Gilbert wouldn't be considered a murderer, you have murdered, if he did it out of love and because he believed it was the right thing to do. Actually, what I'm noticing with yours, I'm going to take a second because I think I'm going to be saying a lot of the same things for your essay, so let me show you a quick tool. There's this quick tool you can add on to Google Docs. I don't know how it will work for Google, the Google Chromebooks that we have at school. I don't know if it'll just stay in your Google Docs because I'll be honest, I don't really know how it works. I just know I have it, and I don't remember how I got it. But it's called Language Tool, and it will kind of check those grammar things that Google Docs is not going to catch right away, because Google Docs really only looks at spelling, not so much grammar. So we see some things about comma rules. Those are names, so it doesn't matter. We have some tense, more commas, spacing concerns, so that will make it a little bit easier for you, because I'm noticing that some of your grammar concerns are things that Google Docs just can't catch, so something to consider. But anyways, back to this paragraph, you need that analysis again, so it's understandable why they should rest in peace. So he believed it was the right thing to do. So take this and take this, they should rest in peace, and talk about how ending her life would help her end in peace, because that would be a lot better. Moving on into your opposition paragraph. So you talk about the Supreme Court and the legality of it, which is pretty good, right? I think this is an overlooked aspect that I'm noticing people are not taking into their essays if they are supporting it, is they're not talking about the legal issues and how that drives an argument. What I would say is, as we get down here, someone stated, and you would want to specify who that someone is, whether or not that's that was someone by a specific name, someone in the court, in one of Kevorkian's court cases. Make sure you're as specific as you can with that. We as a society wouldn't have come up with ways to help those in need. Some people believe that killing is not the real answer to solve problems. I'm not so sure what you're saying here. I don't know if that's an extension to what the person said in the quote before. And just a quick thing with quotes. We haven't talked about it a whole lot. Let me pull this up. I'm just going to pull a portion of it up. There's no protected right to suicide, blah, blah. Someone stated that, and you don't need a comma before the quote unless it's ultimately necessary. But because the way this flows, somebody stated that it's the ultimate form of discrimination to offer disabilities help die. Is that what the quote is? Hold on. Kevorkian. I don't remember if this was this article or not. Was this the Time article? Let me pull this up. To offer people with disabilities help die. Okay, that makes sense. I was wondering what was supposed to be said there. So we go back into Word. It's the ultimate form of discrimination to offer people with disabilities help. I already forgot what the quote was. You get what I'm saying. I'm not going to fix it. But as you continue the quote, you don't have to keep putting the quotation marks. You can keep the punctuation in between. I'm just assuming that's what the quote is. I don't remember from checking it at a quick glance. I think this is the whole quotation you have, but I'm not sure. You don't need the quotation marks to be after every single sentence. You have it for the whole passage. And then if you were doing MLA format, we would do an in-text citation where you take the author's last name and then put the period after those parentheses. But because we're not doing MLA, we don't need to worry about that right now. That's how you would do it. And then you end it with the opposition. So the main thing that's concerning, and I don't mean that it's like a bad thing, but the main concern with this is you have the opposition, but you don't refute or explain it. And you have the evidence, but I think you could use a little bit more analysis with it. Okay? And then you end it with mercy killings are ethical because people don't want to suffer and they want a peaceful death. With having a decision to die or not, it's always okay to have an open mind of what is best for the future. Dying isn't everyone's decision, but sometimes letting go will be what's best. So I think this is actually a really, really powerful way to end your essay. We still have the contractions, and then you need a comma before but. However, this is an okay conclusion. I'd like to see a little bit more. I think there's ways that you can throw things into the conclusion to wrap up with, even throwing in what Kevorkian did and talk about Gilbert a little bit, about maybe a legacy they left behind would be fine, because this, I think, is a really, really powerful statement that's pretty good. But overall, the word choice seems to be okay. Your transitions between paragraphs, I think your writing flows pretty well. I think the biggest thing is, as I'm going through here, is you have evidence, but you definitely need that analysis component. So hopefully as you move forward with the next essays, this will be helpful a little bit. And yes, I think that's all I have to say.